The dust swirled around Martha Townsend's worn boots as she watched the sheriff nail the eviction notice to her door, her 5 children huddled behind her skirts like frightened quail. And she knew in that moment that everything her late husband had promised her about their life in Challies, Idaho, was crumbling to nothing. "You got 3 days, Mrs. Townsend," Sheriff Morrison said, his eyes refusing to meet hers as he stepped down from her porch. "I am sorry about this, truly I am, but the bank owns this property now and they want you out." Martha felt her oldest daughter, Sarah's hand slip into hers, the girl's palms sweaty despite the cool October morning in 1882. At 13, Sarah understood what this meant in a way the younger ones did not. Thomas, her 11-year-old son, stood rigid with anger, his jaw clenched in a manner that reminded her painfully of his father. The twins, Emma and Emily, were only 8, and little Joseph was barely 6. How was she supposed to care for 5 children with no home and winter coming on fast? "I paid what I could," Martha said, hating how her voice shook. "My husband died only 4 months ago. I have been doing everything possible to keep up." "I know that, madam," the sheriff said, finally looking at her with something like pity in his weathered face. "But the bank does not care about that. They want their money or they want this land. Those are the only 2 things that matter to men like Mr. Caldwell." After the sheriff rode away, Martha stood on her porch and surveyed the small homestead that had been her whole world for the past 14 years. The cabin was modest but sturdy, built by her husband's own hands when they first arrived from Missouri. The barn needed repairs she could not afford, and the fields had gone partially unplanted this year without Marcus to work them, but it was home. It was the only home her children had ever known. "Mama, what are we going to do?" Sarah asked quietly. Martha looked down at her daughter's frightened face and forced herself to stand taller. "We will figure something out, sweetheart. We always do." But as she said the words, she wondered if she was lying to her own child. She had sold almost everything of value to pay for Marcus's medicine before he died, and then for his burial. The consumption had taken him slowly, eating away at his strength until he was nothing but skin and bones, coughing blood into handkerchiefs she had to burn. She had $23 to her name, a wagon with 1 cracked wheel, 2 horses too old to fetch a good price, and 5 hungry mouths to feed. That evening, after she had put the children to bed with reassurances she did not feel, Martha sat at her kitchen table and tried to make a plan. She could look for work in town, but who would hire a woman with 5 children in tow? She could try to reach her sister in Oregon, but that was weeks of travel they could not afford, and her sister's husband had made it clear years ago that they were not welcome. She could throw herself on the mercy of the church, but the small congregation in Challies was already stretched thin helping others in need. The knock on her door came just as she was wiping frustrated tears from her eyes. Martha rose cautiously. It was past 9 in the evening, late for visitors. Through the window, she could see a tall figure silhouetted against the moonlight. Her hand went to the rifle Marcus had taught her to shoot, but she did not pick it up yet. "Who is there?" she called. "Name is Russell Grant, madam. I am a neighbor from up the valley. I heard about your situation, and I would like to talk to you if you have a moment." Martha did not recognize the name, but something in the man's voice sounded honest. She opened the door a crack, keeping her body blocking the entrance. The man who stood on her porch was perhaps 30 years old, with dark hair that needed cutting and eyes that looked almost black in the dim light from her lamp. He was dusty from riding and held his hat respectfully in his hands. Despite his worn clothing, there was something solid about him, something that spoke of capability and strength. "I apologize for the late hour," Russell said. I only just got back to my ranch and heard the news from one of my hands who was in town today. I wanted to come speak with you before it got any later." "Speak to me about what exactly, Mr. Grant?" Martha asked, though she opened the door a bit wider. "About you and your children having a place to stay," he said simply. "I have a large ranch about 10 miles north of here. I lost my housekeeper a month ago when she went to live with her daughter in Boise, and I have been managing poorly on my own. I could use help with the cooking and cleaning, and in exchange, you and your children would have a roof over your heads and food on the table." Martha stared at him, trying to understand what she was hearing. "You want to hire me?" "Yes, madam. The work is honest and the pay is fair. I can offer you $30 a month plus room and board for you and all 5 of your children. The house is big enough that you would have your own quarters, completely separate from mine. Everything would be proper and respectable." It sounded too good to be true, which meant it probably was. Martha had learned long ago that men did not offer women things without expecting something in return. "Why would you do this for a stranger?" she asked, her voice harder now. "What do you really want, Mr. Grant?" Russell met her eyes directly. "I want a clean house and hot meals, Mrs. Townsend. Nothing more. I know how it sounds, a single man offering to take in a widow and her children. But I give you my word that my intentions are honorable. You can ask anyone in Challies about my character. I have lived here for 8 years and built my ranch from nothing. I work hard, I pay my debts, and I keep my promises." "I do not know you," Martha said. "I would be taking my children to live with a complete stranger." "That is fair," Russell acknowledged. "So come see the place first. Bring your son if it makes you feel safer. Look at the accommodations I am offering, see the ranch, and make your decision then. But Mrs. Townsend, you have got 3 days before you are put out of your home. Even if you do not take my offer, you need to make a plan soon." Martha wanted to be offended by his bluntness, but he was only speaking the truth. She studied his face, looking for signs of deception or cruelty, but saw only patience and a kind of quiet determination. "Tomorrow morning," she said finally. "I will come see your ranch tomorrow morning. But I am bringing my son and my rifle." "I would expect nothing less," Russell said. He settled his hat back on his head and nodded to her. "I will be here at 8 o'clock with a wagon that can carry all of you. That way you can see that I am serious about this offer." After he left, Martha stood in the doorway for a long time, watching his horse disappear into the darkness. She did not know what to make of Russell Grant or his unexpected offer. It could be a godsend or it could be a disaster. But he was right about one thing. She was running out of time and options. The next morning, Russell arrived exactly at 8 o'clock, driving a sturdy wagon pulled by 2 strong horses. Martha had dressed the children in their best clothes and braided the girls' hair with shaking fingers. She had barely slept, her mind spinning through every possible outcome of this decision. "Good morning," Russell said, climbing down from the wagon. In the daylight, Martha could see him more clearly. He was handsome in a rough-hewn way, with lines around his eyes that spoke of long hours in the sun. His clothes were clean but well worn, and he moved with the easy grace of a man comfortable in his own skin. "Everyone ready?" Thomas stepped forward, positioning himself slightly in front of his mother. "I am coming too." "Good," Russell said, meeting the boy's challenging stare with respect. "A man should look after his family. I am glad your mama has you to help her." Something in Thomas's rigid posture relaxed slightly at being addressed as a man rather than a child. The ride to Russell's ranch took them through some of the most beautiful country Martha had seen since coming to Idaho. The valley was wide and green despite the late season, with mountains rising on either side like protective walls. Cattle grazed in the distance, and she could see a creek winding through the property, its water clear and cold. "You have a lot of land," Martha observed. "Nearly 2,000 acres, Russell said. "I bought it cheap 8 years ago when folks were still nervous about Indian troubles, built it up slowly, running cattle mostly. I have got about 400 head now, and I am looking to expand in the spring." "Where are you from originally?" Martha asked. "Texas. Came up here after the war looking for a fresh start. My father and brothers all died fighting for the Confederacy. After it ended, there was nothing left for me back home." Martha heard the old pain in his voice and recognized it. They had all lost something to get here, all been running from one grief or another. The ranch house came into view as they rounded a bend, and Martha felt her breath catch. It was nothing like the grand houses she had seen in Missouri, but it was substantial and well built. A 2-story structure of heavy timber with a wide porch that wrapped around 3 sides. The barn was enormous, freshly painted, and there were several other outbuildings in good repair. "You built all this yourself?" she asked, unable to hide her amazement. "With help," Russell said. "I've got 3 regular hands and I hire more during roundup. They live in the bunkhouse over there." He pointed to a long, low building set at some distance from the main house. "They are all good men. I do not tolerate drinking or fighting or disrespect." He helped Martha and the children down from the wagon, and Martha noticed how gentle he was with the twins, who were shy around strangers. He led them into the house through the back door, into a kitchen that was easily 3 times the size of the one Martha had left behind. "As you can see, I need help," Russell said, gesturing around the room. Dishes were piled in the sink, the floor needed sweeping, and there was a general air of bachelor neglect that made Martha's fingers itch to start cleaning. "I can manage the outside work just fine, but I was not raised to keep house properly. My mama despaired of me." Despite her nervousness, Martha found herself smiling. "It is not so bad. I have seen worse." "You are being kind," Russell said. He led them through the rest of the house, showing them a large dining room, a parlor with a fireplace and comfortable furniture, and a study lined with more books than Martha had expected a cowboy to own. Upstairs, there were 5 bedrooms. "This would be your room," Russell said, opening the door to a spacious bedroom with windows overlooking the valley. "The girls could share the room next door, and your son could have the one across the hall. The little one could stay with you or with his brother, whichever you prefer." "Where would you sleep?" Martha asked, needing to know exactly how the arrangements would work. "My room is downstairs, off the study," Russell said. "We would have the whole floor between us, and I am usually up before dawn anyway, out working. You would hardly see me except at mealtimes." Martha walked to the window and looked out at the sweeping view. It was beautiful in a way that made her chest ache. She could imagine her children growing up here, running through the fields, learning to ride, having space to breathe and grow. "Why did you never marry Mr. Grant?" she asked, surprising herself with her boldness. Russell was quiet for a moment. "I was engaged once, back in Texas before the war. She married someone else while I was gone fighting. After that, I suppose I was too busy building this place to think much about finding a wife. And the women in these parts, well, they tend to prefer men with softer hands and better manners." "I do not believe that is true," Martha said, turning to face him. "I think you have not found the right woman yet." Their eyes met and held for a moment longer than was strictly proper. Martha felt heat rise in her cheeks and looked away first. "The offer stands, Mrs. Townsend," Russell said quietly. $30 a month, room and board for all of you, and complete respectability. I will draw up a proper contract if it makes you feel better. You can take it to a lawyer in town and have him look it over. I want you to feel safe here." Thomas had been silent throughout the tour, but now he spoke up. "What about me? I can work. I am strong." Russell regarded the boy seriously. "How old are you, son?" 11, nearly 12. "That is old enough to learn ranching if you have got an interest. I could teach you to work cattle, handle horses, mend fence. It would be hard work, but I would pay you fair wages same as I would any hand, and you would still have time for schooling. There is a teacher who comes through Challies 3 times a week." Martha saw the way Thomas's eyes lit up at the prospect of being treated like a working man. He had been trying so hard to fill his father's shoes, to be the man of the family at an age when he should still be allowed to be a boy. "Can I talk to my mother alone for a minute?" Thomas asked. Russell nodded and left the room, closing the door behind him. Martha looked at her son, this child who was growing up too fast. "What do you think?" she asked him. "I think we do not have a choice," Thomas said bluntly. "I think we are going to be homeless in 2 days if we do not take this offer. But Mama, I want to know what you think of him. Do you trust him?" Martha considered the question carefully. "I do not know him well enough to fully trust him yet, but I do not sense any dishonesty in him. And Thomas, we have to take some kind of chance. We cannot make it on our own." "Then we should say yes," Thomas said, "but I am going to keep an eye on him, make sure he treats you right." Martha pulled her son into a hug, blinking back tears. "You are a good boy, Thomas. Your father would be so proud of you." When they rejoined Russell downstairs, Martha took a deep breath and said the words that would change all their lives. "We accept your offer, Mr. Grant. When would you like us to move in?" "Today, if you are willing," Russell said. "I know you have only got 3 days and you will need time to pack. I can bring the wagon back this afternoon and help you load up. We can have you settled here by tonight." "That is very fast," Martha said, her heart pounding. "Sometimes fast is good," Russell said. "Sometimes you just have to trust your gut and take the leap." Martha nodded, feeling dizzy with how quickly her life was changing. "All right then. Today." The afternoon passed in a blur of packing and goodbyes. The neighbors came out to help load the wagon, their faces reflecting pity and curiosity in equal measure. Mrs. Henderson from the next farm over pulled Martha aside and whispered, "Are you sure about this? Going to live with a strange man?" "I am sure I have no other choice," Martha replied. "And he seems like a good man." "He has a reputation for being fair," Mrs. Henderson admitted. "But still, it is unusual. People will talk." "People can talk all they want," Martha said with more confidence than she felt. "My children need a roof and food. That matters more than gossip." Russell worked tirelessly, loading furniture and boxes with a strength that made the work look easy. He was patient with the children, letting them pack their treasures carefully, not rushing them even though the sun was getting low. Martha found herself watching him when she thought he was not looking, noticing the way he smiled at something Emily said, the gentle way he helped Joseph climb up into the wagon. By the time they pulled away from the little cabin, the sun was setting in spectacular fashion, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Martha did not look back. Looking back would only make her cry, and she needed to be strong for her children. The ranch house glowed with lamplight as they approached in the darkness. Russell had clearly prepared for their arrival. The rooms were clean, fires had been laid in the fireplaces, and Martha could smell something cooking in the kitchen. "I had my cook from the bunkhouse make a stew," Russell explained. "Figured you would all be tired and hungry. Tomorrow you can start managing the kitchen however you like, but tonight, just rest and get settled." The children were quiet as they explored their new home, still overwhelmed by the size and strangeness of it all. Martha got them fed and into bed, grateful for the soft mattresses and clean linens that were such a luxury after years of making do. When the children were finally asleep, Martha came back downstairs to find Russell banking the fire in the kitchen. "You should get some rest too," he said. "It has been a long day." "Mr. Grant," Martha said, "I want to thank you for this. I want you to know that I will work hard, that I will earn my keep here." "I am sure you will," Russell said. "But Mrs. Townsend, I want you to understand something. I did not just hire you because I needed a housekeeper. I could have found someone in town for that. I hired you because I could not stand the thought of you and those children being put out on the street with winter coming. I hired you because it was the right thing to do." Martha felt tears prick her eyes. "Why would you care what happens to us? You did not even know us yesterday." Russell was quiet for a long moment, staring into the fire. "My sister was widowed young, left with 3 children. Her husband's family threw her out, said they would not support another man's brats. She had nowhere to go and no one to help her. By the time I got word and could send money, she had already died from pneumonia, sleeping rough in a church basement with her babies. The children survived, but they were scattered to different families, and I never saw them again." "I am so sorry," Martha whispered. "I swore then that if I ever had the means to help someone in that situation, I would," Russell said. "So you see, you are doing me a favor too, letting me keep that promise." They stood together in the quiet kitchen, 2 wounded people finding unexpected connection in their shared losses. "Thank you, Russell," Martha said softly, using his first name for the first time. "You are welcome, Martha," he replied. The first few weeks at the ranch fell into a comfortable routine. Martha woke before dawn to start breakfast for Russell and the ranch hands. She discovered that cooking for a crowd was actually easier than stretching meager supplies to feed her family. Russell kept the pantry well stocked, and for the first time in months, Martha did not have to worry about running out of flour or coffee. The house responded to her care like a flower to water. She cleaned and organized, mended curtains and polished furniture, and slowly the bachelor neglect gave way to the warmth of a true home. She found herself taking pride in the work, in setting a good table and making the rooms welcoming. The children thrived in ways that broke Martha's heart with relief. Thomas worked alongside Russell and the hands, learning to rope and ride, coming in at night exhausted but glowing with accomplishment. The twins helped Martha with lighter chores and played in the big yard, their laughter ringing through the house. Joseph attached himself to Russell like a shadow whenever the cowboy was around, and Russell bore the attention with patient good humor. Sarah was the only one who seemed uncertain. At 13, she was old enough to understand the unusual nature of their situation, old enough to notice the way people in town looked at them when they went in for supplies. She was protective of her mother and suspicious of Russell's kindness. "Why is he being so nice to us?" Sarah asked one evening as she helped Martha prepare dinner. "What does he want?" "He wants a clean house and good meals," Martha said, but she understood her daughter's skepticism. She sometimes wondered the same thing herself. "Men do not help women without expecting something back," Sarah said with a cynicism that seemed too old for her years. Martha set down the knife she was using to chop vegetables and turned to face her daughter. "Some men are cruel and some are kind, Sarah. Your father was a good man, and I believe Russell is too, but I promise you if I ever feel that we are not safe here, we will leave immediately." "Where would we go?" Sarah asked quietly. It was the question that kept Martha up at night. Where would they go? But she forced a smile and said, "We would figure something out. We always do." As October turned to November, the weather grew colder and the work on the ranch shifted to preparing for winter. Russell spent long days moving cattle to lower pastures and making sure the outbuildings were secure against the coming snow. Martha noticed how hard he worked, how he was always the first one up and the last one to bed. she also noticed other things. The way his face softened when he looked at the children. The careful way he spoke to her, always respectful, never presuming on their living arrangement. The fact that he read books in the evening, serious volumes about ranching and history, but also poetry that surprised her. One night, Martha came downstairs to fetch a glass of water and found Russell asleep in his chair in the study, a book open on his lap. In sleep, he looked younger, less careworn. There was a vulnerability to him that he kept hidden during the day. Martha found a blanket and draped it gently over him, then retreated before he could wake and catch her in this small intimacy. But Russell did wake, just enough to feel the warmth of the blanket and know that Martha had put it there. He smiled in the darkness, a foolish smile he would never let himself show in the light. As November progressed, Martha began to realize that her feelings toward Russell were shifting into dangerous territory. She caught herself watching for him to come in from the range, listening for his footsteps on the porch. She took extra care with her hair in the mornings and felt absurdly pleased when he complimented her cooking. It had been less than 6 months since Marcus died. She should still be in mourning, should still be wearing black and keeping her eyes downcast. But grief was a strange thing. It did not follow rules or timelines, and Martha was lonely in ways she had forgotten a person could be lonely. The first snow came in mid-November, a light dusting that made the children squeal with delight. Thomas and Russell spent the afternoon teaching the younger ones how to make snowballs, and the sound of their laughter drifted into the kitchen where Martha was baking bread. Russell came in that evening with snow in his hair and color in his cheeks, looking more carefree than Martha had ever seen him. "Your son has a good arm," he told her. "Got me right in the face with a snowball. I think he has been practicing." "I hope he was not disrespectful," Martha said, though she was smiling. "Not at all. It was a fair fight." Russell poured himself coffee and leaned against the counter, watching Martha knead dough. "You look happy." The observation caught Martha off guard. "I suppose I am." "The children are happy, and that makes me happy." "What about you, though?" Russell asked. "Not just as a mother, but as Martha, are you happy?" No one had asked her that question in years. Martha stopped kneading and really considered it. "I am content," she said finally. "I am grateful. I feel safe here, and that is more than I had hoped for a few months ago." "But happy," Russell pressed. Martha met his eyes, those dark eyes that seemed to see more than she wanted to reveal. "I am learning to be happy again. It is harder than it sounds." "I know," Russell said quietly. "After my sister died, I thought I would never feel anything but angry again. But time passes, and eventually you find moments of peace. Eventually you find reasons to smile." "Is that what happened to you? You found peace here?" Martha asked. "I did. And then you showed up and turned my peaceful house upside down," Russell said, but he was smiling. "I can be quieter if you prefer," Martha said archly. "I will tell the children to stop laughing so much." "Don't you dare," Russell said. "This house needed laughter. It needed life. It needed you." The words hung in the air between them, weighted with meaning that neither was quite ready to acknowledge. Martha felt her pulse quicken and made herself look away, focusing on the dough beneath her hands. "The bread will be ready for dinner," she said, her voice not quite steady. "Good," Russell said. "I will be looking forward to it." After he left the kitchen, Martha had to sit down for a moment, her knees weak. This was happening too fast. She barely knew this man. Her husband had been dead for less than 6 months. People would talk, would judge, would assume the worst. But when she closed her eyes, she saw Russell's smile, felt the warmth of his presence, and something in her heart that had been frozen since Marcus died began to thaw. December brought heavier snows, and the celebration of Christmas approached. The children were excited, though Martha worried about how she would afford gifts on her limited wages. She had managed to save most of what Russell paid her, knowing she needed to build up some security in case this situation changed. A week before Christmas, Russell brought home a wagon full of supplies from town, including a pine tree that was nearly as tall as he was. "Every house needs a Christmas tree," he announced, wrestling it through the front door with Thomas's help. The children descended on it with shrieks of joy, and Martha found herself blinking back tears. Marcus had always been too practical for things like Christmas trees. They were a waste, he said, dead plants that made a mess. But Martha had always wanted one. "I hope this is all right," Russell said, suddenly uncertain as he noticed her tears. "If it is too much, if it hurts to celebrate this year, I can take it back." "No," Martha said quickly. "No, it is perfect. I am just being silly." But Russell stepped closer and said quietly, so only she could hear, "You are not being silly. You are being human. It is all right to feel things, Martha, even contradictory things, even happy and sad at the same time." That night, they decorated the tree with strings of popcorn and berries, paper chains the children made, and a few precious ornaments Russell had in storage. When they lit the candles, the whole room glowed with magic, and for the first time since Marcus died, Martha felt something like joy. On Christmas Eve, after the children were in bed, Martha and Russell sat in the parlor drinking hot cider and watching the firelight flicker. Snow was falling outside, and the world felt hushed and peaceful. "I got something for you," Russell said, reaching behind his chair to pull out a wrapped package. "You did not need to do that," Martha protested. "You have already given us so much. Just open it," Russell said. Inside the package was a beautiful shawl, soft wool dyed a deep blue that reminded Martha of twilight. It was the finest thing she had owned in years. "It is beautiful," she whispered. "But Russell, this is too much." "It is just a shawl," Russell said, "and blue is your color." Martha looked up at him, this man who had saved her and her children, who worked himself to exhaustion and never asked for anything in return, who somehow knew her well enough to choose blue. "I got something for you too," she said shyly. "It is not much." She handed him a package wrapped in brown paper, and he opened it carefully to reveal a thick woolen scarf she had knitted from yarn she had unraveled from one of her old sweaters. "I made it myself," Martha said. "I noticed you did not have one, and the wind gets so cold when you are out working." Russell ran his fingers over the careful stitches, and when he looked at her, his eyes were bright with emotion. "No one has made me anything by hand since my mother died. Thank you, Martha. I will treasure this." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, and then Russell said, "Can I ask you something personal, I suppose?" Martha said, her heart starting to race. "You think you will ever want to marry again?" Russell asked. "I do not mean to me necessarily, I just mean in general." "Or do you think once was enough?" Martha thought about Marcus, about the life they had built together. It had been a good marriage in many ways, but not a passionate one. Marcus had been practical and steady, a good provider but not given to romance or sweet words. They had been partners more than lovers, and Martha had accepted that as what marriage was supposed to be. "I think I would like to marry again someday," she said slowly. "If I found the right person. Someone who understood about the children, who would not expect me to be anything other than what I am. Someone kind." "Someone kind," Russell repeated. "That seems like a low bar. You would be surprised how rare true kindness is," Martha said. "Most people are kind when it costs them nothing. But kindness that requires sacrifice, that requires putting someone else's needs before your own, that is much harder to find." "Is that what you think I have done? Sacrificed for you and your children?" Russell asked. "Have not you?" Martha countered. "No," Russell said firmly. "Martha, having you here has made my life better, not worse. I look forward to coming home now. I look forward to dinner and conversation and hearing about what the children did during the day. I look forward to seeing your face." Martha's breath caught. "Russell, I do not know what to say." "You do not have to say anything," Russell said. "I know it has not been that long since your husband passed. I know people would talk if anything developed between us. I am not trying to rush you or pressure you. I just wanted you to know how I feel." "How do you feel?" Martha asked, her voice barely a whisper. Russell set down his cider and turned to face her fully. "I am falling in love with you, Martha Townsend. I have been falling since the moment I saw you standing on your porch with your chin up and your eyes full of fear and courage. I love your strength and your gentleness, the way you mother your children and the way you hum while you cook. I love that you read my books when you think I am not looking, and that you always save the best piece of meat for Joseph, because he is the youngest. I love everything about you, and if you never feel the same way, I will accept that and we will go on as we have been. But I could not let another day pass without telling you the truth." Martha felt tears streaming down her face. "I thought I was going crazy," she said. "I thought I was a terrible person for having feelings so soon after Marcus died. I thought there was something wrong with me." "There is nothing wrong with you," Russell said gently. "The heart does not follow a schedule, Martha. It feels what it feels." "I care for you," Martha said. "I do not know if it is love yet, but it could be. It is already becoming something very close to love. But Russell, I have 5 children. I come with a ready-made family and all the complications that brings. You deserve better than that. You deserve a young woman who can give you your own children, who does not have all this history and baggage." "I do not want a young woman," Russell said. "I want you. And those 5 children are not a burden, Martha. They are a gift. Thomas is teaching me patience. Sarah is teaching me to earn trust instead of expecting it. The twins make me laugh every day, and Joseph, well, that boy has stolen my heart completely. If you will have me, I would be proud to be a father to them." Martha was openly crying now, and Russell reached out to gently wipe her tears with his thumb. The touch was electric, the first time he had touched her beyond polite handshakes and accidental brushes of hands. "I need time," Martha said. "I need to think about this and talk to my children. This affects all of us, not just me." "Take all the time you need," Russell said. "I am not going anywhere." Christmas morning was chaos and joy as the children discovered the gifts Russell had bought for each of them. There were dolls for the twins, a new rifle for Thomas, books for Sarah, and a wooden horse on wheels for Joseph. Martha watched Russell's face as the children thanked him, saw the genuine pleasure he took in their happiness, and knew that he had meant everything he said the night before. Over the next few weeks, Martha thought carefully about Russell's declaration. She watched how he interacted with her children, how he was firm but fair with Thomas, patient with Joseph's endless questions, encouraging of Sarah's sharp mind. She noticed how he made sure the twins were included in decisions about dinner or what book to read in the evening. He was not trying to replace their father, but he was offering them something precious, a man they could depend on, who would be there for them. She also paid attention to her own feelings. When Russell came in from a long day outside, did her heart lift? Yes. When he smiled at her across the dinner table, did she feel warm and flustered? Yes. When she imagined her future, was he in it? Yes, absolutely yes. In late January, Martha asked Sarah to walk with her one afternoon while the younger children were napping and Thomas was out working with Russell. "I need to talk to you about something important," Martha said as they walked through the snowy fields. "It is about Mr. Grant, is not it?" Sarah said, "You have feelings for him." Martha should not have been surprised that her perceptive daughter had noticed. "I do, and he has feelings for me. He has asked in a roundabout way if I might consider marrying him eventually." Sarah was quiet for a long time, her breath making clouds in the cold air. "Do you love him?" she finally asked. "I think I do," Martha said honestly. "But I need to know how you feel about it. You are old enough to have a say in this decision. If you are not comfortable with it, I need to know." "Do you love him the way you loved Papa?" Sarah asked. "No," Martha said. "I loved your father and I always will, but the love I feel for Russell is different. It is bigger somehow, more passionate." "Does that make sense?" "I think so," Sarah said. "Papa was a good father, but he was not always an easy man. He was strict and serious, and he did not like it when we were too loud or messy. Mr. Grant seems to actually enjoy having us around." "He does," Martha confirmed. "He loves you children, all of you." Sarah kicked at the snow, thinking. "I was angry at first," she admitted. "When we moved here, I felt like we were betraying Papa's memory. But Mama, I can see how much happier you are now. You smile more. You sing sometimes. And the little ones barely remember what it was like before, but I do. I remember how worried you were all the time, how thin you got trying to make sure we had enough to eat. I do not want to go back to that." "Neither do I," Martha said. "Then if you love him and he loves you, I think you should marry him," Sarah said. "I think Papa would want you to be happy. I think he would be grateful that someone is taking care of us." Martha pulled her daughter into a tight hug. "When did you get so wise?" "I had a good teacher," Sarah said. That evening after dinner, Martha asked Russell to join her on the porch. The night was cold but clear, the stars brilliant overhead. "I have been thinking about what you said at Christmas," Martha began. "I figured you might be," Russell said, his voice carefully neutral. "I talked to Sarah today. I wanted to know how she felt about the possibility of us becoming more than employer and employee." "That was wise," Russell said. "What did she say?" "She gave us her blessing," Martha said. "And I have thought about it from every angle, considered all the reasons why it might be a bad idea or move too fast or what people might say. But Russell, the truth is that I love you. I love your kindness and your strength. I love how you are with my children. I love the man you are. And if you still want me, if the offer still stands, then yes. Yes, I will marry you." Russell let out a breath that might have been relief or joy or both. "Are you sure? Martha, I do not want you to feel pressured or like you owe me anything." "I am sure," Martha said. "I have never been more sure of anything. I love you, Russell Grant." Russell pulled her into his arms, holding her close, and Martha felt like she had finally come home. When he kissed her, gentle and careful, it was like nothing she had ever experienced. Marcus had never kissed her like this, like she was precious and desired and cherished all at once. "I love you too," Russell whispered against her hair. "I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret this decision." They were married in February in a small ceremony at the church in Challies. There was gossip, of course. Widow Townsend marrying so soon after her husband's death, moving in with a bachelor before the wedding. It gave the town busybodies plenty to discuss. But Russell and Martha did not care. They stood before God and their community and promised to love and honor each other. And that was all that mattered. Thomas stood up as Russell's best man, a responsibility he took very seriously. The girls wore new dresses Martha had sewn, and Joseph carried the rings on a small pillow, only dropping them once. It was a simple wedding, but it was perfect. The first months of their marriage were an adjustment. Martha had to get used to sharing a bed with someone again, to the intimacy of marriage. But Russell was patient and gentle, always making sure she was comfortable, never demanding more than she was ready to give. "Are you happy?" he asked her one night as they lay together in the darkness. "Deliriously," Martha said, and she meant it. This marriage was nothing like her first. Russell talked to her, asked her opinions, made her feel like a partner in every decision. He was affectionate in ways Marcus had never been, stealing kisses in the kitchen, holding her hand as they walked, telling her she was beautiful. The children adjusted to calling Russell Pa with varying degrees of ease. Joseph took to it immediately, having been so young when Marcus died. The twins followed suit within a few weeks. Thomas struggled more, feeling like he was betraying his father's memory, but eventually, he too began to use the title, especially after Russell gave him more responsibilities on the ranch and treated him like the young man he was becoming. Sarah was the holdout, always calling him Mr. Grant or Sir. Russell never pushed her, understanding that she needed more time to trust completely. Spring brought new life to the ranch. The cattle calved, the grass turned green, and Russell hired extra hands for the busy season. Martha found herself managing not just the house, but also feeding a small army of ranch hands, preparing huge meals 3 times a day. It was exhausting but satisfying work, and she loved seeing Russell's pride when the other ranchers commented on how well run his operation was. In late April, Martha realized she had missed her monthly courses. At first, she thought it was stress or the change in her routine, but when another month passed, she knew. She was pregnant. The realization filled her with a mix of joy and fear. She was 33 years old, and it had been 6 years since Joseph was born. Pregnancy and childbirth were dangerous at any age, but especially for older mothers. What if something went wrong? What if she died and left Russell alone with 6 children, but beneath the fear was a deep happiness? This baby would be hers and Russell's, created out of love rather than duty. This baby would be proof that good things could grow from grief, that life went on and brought unexpected blessings. She told Russell one evening in May, her hands shaking as she took his and placed them on her still flat belly. "I am pregnant," she said simply. Russell's face went through a series of expressions so quickly Martha almost laughed. Shock, then joy, then worry, then joy again. "Are you all right? How are you feeling? Should you be working so hard? Do we need to get the doctor?" The questions tumbled out. "I am fine," Martha said, laughing now. "Women have babies all the time, Russell. I have done it 5 times before." "But you are my wife now," Russell said. "And I am allowed to worry about you." He pulled her into his arms and held her carefully as if she might break. "A baby," he whispered. "Our baby. Martha, I never thought I would have this. I never thought I would have a family of my own." "You do," Martha said. "You have all of us. And soon there will be one more." The children received the news with mixed reactions. Joseph was excited at the prospect of not being the baby anymore. The twins wanted to know if it would be a girl or a boy and argued about names. Thomas seemed pleased but embarrassed by the whole topic. Sarah was quiet and Martha worried about what her oldest daughter was thinking. Later that night, Sarah came to Martha's room and sat on the edge of the bed. "Mama, can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetheart." "Are you happy about the baby?" Sarah asked. "Really happy, not just saying you are." "I am really happy," Martha said. "Are you all right with it?" "I think so," Sarah said slowly. "It just makes everything so final, you know, like we really are a new family now, not just pretending or making do. And I guess part of me still misses how things were before, even though I know we could never go back." Martha took her daughter's hand. "It is all right to miss your father and still be happy about the baby. It is all right to hold both feelings at once. Life is complicated that way." "Do you think Papa would be angry?" Sarah asked quietly. "About you remarrying and having another baby?" Martha thought carefully before answering. "I think your father loved you children more than anything. I think he would be grateful that you are being cared for and that you are happy. As for me remarrying, he and I never talked about what would happen if one of us died. But I do not think he would want me to be alone forever. I think he would want me to find happiness again." "I hope so," Sarah said. Because I really like Mr. Grant. I mean Pa. I think I might be ready to call him Pa now. I think he would like that very much, Martha said, fighting back tears. The pregnancy progressed smoothly through the summer. Martha's belly swelled, and she had to let out her dresses and accept that she was going to be waddling around the kitchen like a duck by the end. Russell was absurdly attentive, constantly worried that she was doing too much, trying to get her to rest more. "I am pregnant, not dying," Martha finally told him in exasperation after he tried to stop her from hanging laundry. "I need to keep moving or I will go crazy." "I just worry," Russell said. "You are not as young as you were with the others." "I am aware of my age, thank you very much," Martha said tartly, but she softened when she saw the genuine fear in his eyes. "Russell, I am going to be fine. Women my age have babies. It will be all right." In September, as the leaves turned gold and red, Martha went into labor. It was hard, harder than she remembered from her previous pregnancies, and there were moments when she understood Russell's fear. But Russell stayed with her the whole time, holding her hand, wiping her forehead, whispering encouragement. "You can do this," he told her. "You are the strongest person I know. Just a little longer." When the baby finally came, red and squalling and perfect, the doctor announced, "It is a boy." Russell was crying as he cut the cord as he held his son for the first time. "He is beautiful," he said. "Martha, he is perfect." They named him Marcus Russell Grant, honoring both the father the older children had lost and the father this new baby would know. Little Marcus had Russell's dark hair and Martha's blue eyes, and from the moment he was born, he was adored by every member of the family. The older children fought over who got to hold him, who got to help feed him, who would teach him to walk and ride and read. Russell was a devoted father, getting up in the night when the baby cried, changing diapers without complaint, spending hours just staring at his son in wonder. "I cannot believe he is ours," Russell said one night as they watched Marcus sleep in his cradle. "I cannot believe this is my life now. 2 years ago I was alone in this big house, eating cold beans for dinner and wondering if this was all there was. And now look at us. A wife, 6 children, a home full of love and noise and life. How did I get so lucky?" "We both got lucky," Martha said, leaning her head on his shoulder. "We found each other when we both needed saving." As the months passed and Marcus grew from a newborn to a smiling, chubby baby, the family settled into their rhythms. Thomas was 15 now, nearly a man, working the ranch alongside Russell and talking about maybe having his own spread someday. Sarah was 16 and had started walking out with the schoolteacher's son, a polite young man that Russell had thoroughly interrogated before allowing the courtship. The twins were 11 and full of energy and mischief. Joseph was 9 and had become Marcus's devoted guardian, always making sure the baby was safe and happy. One evening in late spring, 2 years after their wedding, Russell came in from the range to find the house unusually quiet. He found Martha on the porch, rocking Marcus and watching the sunset. "Where is everyone?" he asked, settling beside her. "Thomas took the younger ones fishing down at the creek," Martha said. "Sarah is at the church social. I thought we could use a quiet evening." Russell reached over and took her hand, lacing their fingers together. "Do you ever regret it?" "Marrying me, I mean. Taking on this life." "Never," Martha said firmly. "Do you?" "Not for a single second," Russell said. "Martha, you and these children are the best thing that ever happened to me. I wake up every morning grateful that you took a chance on a lonely cowboy." "You saved us," Martha said. "That day you came to my door and offered us a home, you saved our lives." "No," Russell said. "We saved each other." They sat together as the stars came out, watching their youngest son sleep peacefully in his mother's arms, listening to the distant laughter of their other children, and feeling the deep contentment of two people who had found their way home. The years that followed were not without challenges. There were hard winters and dry summers, sick cattle and broken fences, the normal struggles of ranching life. There were arguments and hurt feelings, teenagers testing boundaries, the daily work of keeping a large family running smoothly. But through it all, Martha and Russell had each other. They had built something real and lasting, a family forged not just from blood but from choice and love and commitment. The children grew and thrived, each finding their own path in life, but always knowing they had a home to return to. Thomas eventually did get his own ranch, settling on land adjacent to Russell's spread and marrying a girl from Salmon. Sarah became a teacher, following her love of learning and eventually marrying a lawyer from Boise. The twins, despite being identical, had completely different personalities. Emma became a nurse and Emily a rancher's wife, both staying in the Challies area. Joseph studied engineering in Salt Lake City before returning home to help modernize the ranch. And Marcus, the baby born of second-chance love, grew up strong and kind, with his father's quiet strength and his mother's generous heart. He eventually took over the ranch when Russell was ready to slow down, keeping the family legacy going. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Russell took Martha back to Challies, to the church where they had married and renewed their vows. All 6 children were there, along with grandchildren and friends and neighbors. It was a celebration of survival and love, of 2 broken people who had found wholeness in each other. "I would do it all again," Russell told Martha as they danced at the celebration afterward. "Every hard moment, every struggle, every tear, it was all worth it to end up here with you." "I love you," Martha said, the words still as powerful as they had been the first time she said them. "I will love you until my last breath." They lived long lives, Russell and Martha Grant. They saw their children married and settled, met grandchildren and great-grandchildren. They weathered storms both literal and figurative, always side by side, always stronger together than they could have been apart. When Russell died at 78, peacefully in his sleep with Martha beside him, the whole valley mourned. He had been more than a successful rancher. He had been a good man, a loving father, a faithful husband, a friend to those in need. At his funeral, Thomas spoke about the day Russell had married his mother, how it had seemed too soon and too fast, but how Russell had proven himself worthy of their trust every single day after. Martha lived another 5 years, surrounded by the love of her large family. She spent her days rocking great-grandchildren, tending her garden and telling stories about the handsome Cowboy who had saved her and her children when they had nowhere else to turn. She died on a warm summer evening, sitting on the porch of the ranch house Russell had built, watching the sun set over the mountains she had called home for more than 40 years. Her children and grandchildren were gathered around her, and her last words were, "Tell your pa I am coming home." They buried her beside Russell on a hill overlooking the ranch, under a sky so big and blue it seemed to go on forever. The headstones were simple, just their names and dates, and underneath, the words Russell had requested, "We saved each other." The ranch stayed in the family for generations, a testament to what Russell and Martha had built together. The story of the widow and the cowboy became family legend, told and retold, each generation marveling at the courage it took for Martha to trust a stranger, for Russell to open his heart to a ready-made family, for both of them to choose love when it would have been easier to choose safety. Because in the end, that was what their story was about, choosing love, choosing to risk heartbreak for the possibility of happiness, choosing to believe that good things could come from grief, that endings could become beginnings, that a knock on the door on a desperate night could change everything. The children who had once stood frightened behind their mother's skirts, watching a cowboy nail an eviction notice to their door, grew old telling their own children about the day Russell Grant had driven up in his wagon and said those life-changing words, "Pack up, you are all coming with me." It had been a beginning disguised as an ending, a salvation wrapped in simple kindness, a love story written in the dust and snow of the Idaho wilderness. And every generation that followed carried that story in their hearts, a reminder that sometimes the best things in life come when you are at your lowest, that heroes do not always wear badges or carry fancy guns, that love can bloom even in the hardest soil if you are brave enough to plant the seeds. The ranch still stands today, though it has been modernized and expanded over the years. But the original house Russell built is still there, still solid, still home. And on quiet evenings when the wind blows just right through the valley, some say you can hear the echo of children's laughter, the sound of Martha humming in the kitchen, the low rumble of Russell's voice as he tells a story by the fire. The land remembers. The mountains remember. And the family remembers, passing down the story like a precious inheritance. The tale of two wounded souls who found each other in the wild and beautiful territory of Idaho in 1882 and built something that would last long after they were gone. It was not a story of love at first sight or grand romantic gestures. It was better than that. It was a story of steady devotion, of showing up every day, of choosing each other over and over again. It was a story of blended families and second chances, of grief transformed into joy, of loneliness defeated by love. And it all started with a simple act of kindness from a cowboy who could not stand to see a widow and her children turned out into the cold, and a mother who was brave enough to accept help when she needed it most. From that single moment of compassion grew a love that shaped generations, a family that thrived, and a legacy that endured. In the records of Challis, Idaho, their marriage certificate still exists, faded and fragile but preserved. Russell Grant and Martha Townsend, married February 14, 1883. Valentine's Day. Russell had planned it that way, wanting their anniversary to always be on a day celebrating love. The ranch they built together covered thousands of acres at its peak, providing livelihoods for dozens of families over the decades. But more than the land or the cattle or the buildings, Russell and Martha's true legacy was the love they showed was possible. Love that heals, love that saves, love that endures. Their story became part of the fabric of the community, an example held up to young couples starting out, to widows who thought their lives were over, to lonely people who wondered if they would ever find connection again. See, people would say, look at Russell and Martha. Look at what is possible when you open your heart. And so the years turned to decades, the decades to a century, and still the story lived on. The widow who was evicted, the cowboy who said, "Pack up, you are all coming with me," the family that was born from that moment of crisis and compassion. It was a story about the Wild West, about survival and frontier justice and the harsh realities of life in 1880s Idaho. But more than that, it was a story about the wild and untamable human heart, about its capacity for healing and growth and love beyond measure. Martha and Russell Grant lived and died as all people do. But what they built together, what they gave to each other and their children and the generations that followed, that never died. It lived on in the values they instilled, in the land they tended, in the love they showed was possible even in the hardest times. And somewhere, in whatever comes after this life, two souls are together still. The widow and the cowboy, the mother and the father, the two broken people who became whole by finding each other. dancing under stars that never fade, in a home that will never crumble, in a love that truly did last forever. The end.